Welcome to Tech Notice. What is the Best-Bang-4-Buck Pro Creators PC of 2021? This one over here. You're wondering, can it do video editing, photo editing, graphics design, After Effects, visual effects? Yep. Do you mean all of it? Yeah. It can edit 4K, 6K, 8K, 12K, RAW? Yep. Don't believe me? Well, I'll show you right after this.
Artlist is an affordable way to license all the music you need for your projects. Whether it's personal, commercial, TV, podcast, YouTube, Facebook, you get the point. You name it, it's covered. No more worrying if your music licensing covers your project. One worldwide license that covers it all. Oh, and that's not all. Artlist also includes tons of sound effects and the music is updated daily, so you never run out of choice. If you're wondering, how did I get all these nice shots of B-roll? Well, it's called Artgrid, a site similar to Artlist but for video. Artgrid can provide all the stock footage you need from HD to 8K, RAW file formats, log or graded, to assure that it can be personalized and fitted to your current project. And Artgrid works the same as Artlist, one worldwide license that covers it all. So it's simple, choose the license that you need and that fits your budget, and enjoy the unlimited downloads without any extra cost added. Get 2 extra months for free when you join Artgrid or Artlist through the links provided. Check out Artlist and Artgrid in the video description below.
Just a quick little notice, it's important to note that this is part 1 of this video series. Part 2 and 3 are talking about why did we choose exactly these parts and how you can save some more money, and if you want to upgrade and you've got some more dough, what would be the best option and what would be the best bang for buck parts, and the thinking all behind this, because every single part has been carefully chosen for this build. So that's part 2. Part 3 is separated into 2 parts, and that's the building video. You can see how I'm building the hardware and everything, so if you watch the video, anyone can build this PC. And then the second part of part 3 is about all the software configuration and all the insides of it, so you can actually make this PC work and know that it will work as well as mine. And another thing I want to mention is that I don't really like just to list some specs and things like that, so I'm going to leave the specs and all the parts for this PC in the description below. So if you want to check these out, the links for all the parts and specs are in the description below. So in this video, we're going to be looking at some benchmarks of this PC. We're going to be looking at and comparing it to some of the other things out there. For example, Macs, that's always interesting content. Let's compare PC to Mac and get some, mean comments in the comment section below. That's all how it goes. So we're going to do that. We're going to see some real world performance, live Premiere Pro benchmarks and how does it work, live playback on loads of different, very hard codecs. And that will be like the cherry on the cake of this PC. We're going to get to that in a moment. We're going to look at the user experience and the good and bad sides of this PC. So first of all, I'd like to compare this PC to some of the Macs out there, and just to give you kind of an idea at what league this PC actually performs, just to put it in perspective, how much does it actually cost and is it good value for this? So basically this PC costs around £2,500 here in the UK. If you're in the US, obviously equivalent value or currency trading, blah blah blah. So check out the links below to know the exact price, but basically roughly around $3,000. So let's have a look at some of the Macs over here. So on this side over here, you can see that I've got my single core and multi-core performance of Geekbench 5. So you can find the same benchmarks or do the same benchmarks to see your own system as well. But in here, we're going to see single core of Mac. Ours is 1693, and as you can see, it's just short of the MacBook Air, and it is only 6 points less. Now, what does 6 points relate to? That is less than 0.5% of the difference. So actually, it is right up there with the M1 Max of single core performance. A Geekbench 5 just looks at all the different kind of aspects of working with the PC, everyday PC, you know, like doing programs, apps opening, unzipping, Gaussian blur, and just loads of different areas. That's what Geekbench 5 kind of measures on computers. And as you can see, we're right up there with Mac Mini is obviously, you know, highest over here, and that is what, 14 points difference, which is still less than 1%. Oxday 16 points, that is literally 1% difference, so it could be a difference of an error. So single core, we're right up there, like the best as it can get, as good as it can get. Now let's have a look at the multi-core, because that is much more interesting, because these over here don't have that good of a multi-core score. So if we go to the Mac multi-core performance over here, we're gonna see that 14,282, just shy of the Mac Pro 16 core. And we have only 12 core. That shows how good these cores are in there. And we're beating the 18 core iMac Pro. Just to see, this here is the iMac Pro configuration, and we are better than the 18 core, you know, processor over here. We have 64 gigabytes of memory. This is exactly that. Our graphics card is actually better in terms of raw rendering performance than this one over here. I know this one has more RAM, but ours is much better. 2 terabytes of storage, and that's £8,000. I know you're gonna get the screen with the iMac Pro as well, beautiful 5K screen, but you can easily add that 5K screen with this and still pay thousands of pounds less. Now, just for the heck of it, it would be interesting to see how much would it cost to actually use the same specs on Mac Pro, and how much would it cost there, just to put in perspective how affordable is this system here. So our 16 core, remember we were the closest to that processor, much closer to the 16 core performance than 12 core performance. By the way, that is the multi-core rendering performance. The single core is just miles better than this Mac Pro, just so you know. We have 48 gigabytes of RAM. So our system over here has actually 64 gigabytes, which is actually more, but other option over here is 96, so I don't want to go there, because then the Mac Pro would be even more expensive, just to keep it, you know, roughly there. We can see that the Radeon Pro Vega Duo, we have this graphics card, and just so you know, this one is miles less powerful than ours. As you can see, we have the Geekbench 5 OpenCL score over here, and that is 88,000, as you can see. Radeon Pro Vega Duo. And then look at that one. Our graphics card is right up there. So there is quite a good percentage better than this one over here, even though we have these over there. I know the Mac Pro RAM of the graphics card is more. 2 terabytes of storage, and look at the price. Almost £14,000. 14 grand, you know, dollars. That is a lot. £2,500 over here. But in terms of Cinebench score over here, Cinebench is basically like this, the pure rendering performance of the CPU inside. Single core and multi-core rendering. In terms of single core rendering, we are the second best in the world. And look, this is less than 0.5% of the best in the world of the best processors you can get for single core rendering. Obviously multi-core is not as good because it doesn't have that many cores as some of the, you know, massively 64 core processors there, but these cost thousands and thousands and multiple times as much as this processor over there, and these single cores aren't as powerful, if that makes sense. But so you can do the test yourself and compare it to your system, and then see how much this would be better, and so you can kind of get an idea if you should upgrade or not upgrade. And also Geekbench 5 CPU and GPU scores out there, so you can compare it to yourselves as well, or your systems. So what about the Lightroom Classic, for example? We are the 4th best in the world of system that you can get. After Effects, we're the 2nd best, but the first one is beating After Effects by just a little margin. Photoshop, we're the 3rd best. Reality Capture, we're the 2nd best. Agisoft Metashape, we're the 3rd best. Pix4D, we're the 5th best. DaVinci Resolve and Premiere Pro, we're the 6th best. And then if you look at what's the top of these processors, for example Premiere Pro and DaVinci Resolve, we're 6th, and on top of it obviously is the Threadripper systems, which are so many times more expensive than this CPU, obviously. But if you put it in perspective, this is a very good spot for the Bang-for-Buck Pro creator system. Did you see how many programs are just listed out? Almost everything, whatever you can name it, it can do gaming as well. Just so you know, I'm gonna leave this Heaven benchmark on the screen so you can see, get an idea how good it would be in gaming as well. So if you're wondering what does the Blender CPU and GPU benchmarks, then these are here on the screen. Very impressive scores and very good performance. More importantly, what would be interesting is the SSD benchmarks. Now, there's two SSDs inside. One is much better than the other one, but they're ridiculous speeds over there. Now, the read and write speeds of the main operating system over there are 5 gigabytes per second, 4,975 megabytes per second. That is ridiculous. Just to put it in perspective, the MAC Pro benchmarks that we just saw over there, the MAC Pro max read and write speeds are 3.4 gigabytes, 3,400 megabytes per second, and that is the absolute maximum it can reach. Now, ours are 5,000. It's a lot more than what the Mac can offer. And then our secondary drive over there, which is much slower speeds, are 3,000 megabytes per second read and write speed, which is still ridiculously fast speeds. So you're wondering, flipping heck, you're getting that much performance out of there. The temperatures must be really high, and the temperatures are so good. Now, in my experience, I've never used a PC before that has such good thermals as this one, and compared to the hardware that's in there, it's just insane. Now, 15-minute CPU and GPU 100% stress test, and then seeing how much the temperature is. The CPU is at 73 Celsius and the GPU is at 66 degrees Celsius. That is absolutely amazing performance. Now, this is completely closed system, not like open system like this over here, just so you can see inside. It's beautiful, but that's how it was measured. Just a note over here, in real world performance, it's really hard for any program, any software to actually do 100% CPU utilization and GPU utilization. So you're never gonna see these temps in real world unless you're editing in Sahara Desert on your lap while actually covering this all on a cloth or carpet and it's absolutely heating up, then probably. But in a normal room temperature, you'll never see these temps rise that high. I did another test where I put it through 24-hour render performance. So just left the Cinema 4D to render through After Effects and made Media Coder, and the highest the CPU reach was 69 degrees Celsius, which is absolutely amazing. So that's more like real world performance. And during the Blender CPU render, we see that the CPU was 71 Celsius. So you can see the screenshots, everything on the screen. Now let's jump into the cherry on top of the cake, which is Premiere Pro real world performance. How does it play back some really hard codecs, video codecs over there? Now, I chose Premiere Pro because obviously I'm most comfortable using that program, and I know that this program is the least optimized. So if it plays back in there, you can expect it to play back also in DaVinci Resolve or any other program. So in here now, we're going to be looking through different codecs. Now this one, first clip over here, is 4K 10-bit 422 4K, which is what you're actually seeing right now, this angle. Now that is seriously hard for the CPU to encode, and there's no GPU that can accelerate this codec because the 422 10-bit, this is really hard for this to go back. As you can see, we're playing back full resolution and the timeline performance is quite okay. Now compared to the SI codec, which is much better timeline performance, as you can see, look, it's much more playback on the timeline. And when playing it back on full resolution, we're losing no frames. They're both playing back very easily. Obviously the SI codec a little bit easier because that's that. Now let's look at A7S3 10-bit 420HS codec. So basically this is high efficiency codec, H.265 codec, and look at the timeline performance. It's also 50 frames per second, as you can see over here. So look at that, the timeline performance is absolutely beautiful. You can easily edit this. It is a little bit choppy, but these are some of the most difficult codecs to decode in the world. Now let's look at something more rough. Okay, this is Red RAW, full resolution. You can see Ultra HD, Red RAW file, and look at the timeline performance. It is beautiful. It's butter smooth. No problem. Look, it's so much better than our Sony A7S3 codec, which we just played back over there. That's no problem. If you press play, you know, full resolution plays back, no problem. Let's move on. It's getting a bit boring. 5K codec, look at that, no problem. You press play, smooth as anything. 6K Red RAW, look at that, no problem. Flies through the timeline like butter. We press play, takes a while, but then plays back, 0 frames dropped. Okay, we're dropping a little bit over here, 4 frames dropped, completely editable, full resolution. Now, no one will edit really, you know, 6K RAW at full resolution, but this one over here, this is Blackmagic 6K B RAW. It's very high efficient codec, but as you can see, the timeline performance is beautiful. Butter smooth, we're going through even 2 6Ks on top, 3 6Ks on top, playing back no problem. Look, I'll just press play over here. 0 frames dropped, playing back 3 6Ks on top of each other. That's absolutely insane. Now, Red 8K, okay? This is a little bit more difficult codec. We're playing back 8K raw video at full resolution. Now there's no 8K actual monitors, editing monitors out there. It's kind of mental, no one would do that, but just to show how good this is, look at the timeline performance. It is really, really smooth. Look at how smooth this is. It's buttery smooth. This is 8K full resolution playback. Look at that, look at the timeline performance. It's absolutely beautiful. You press play, it plays back, 0 frames dropped. 8K raw, red raw. How insane is that? Okay, Canon R5, 8K, again, Canon Cinema Raw Lite. We have 8K, as you can see. Look at that. What's the codecs playback over here? 30 frames per second. And look at the timeline performance. It is a bit more choppy than anything, but it is editable. Look, this is full resolution playback as well. If you put it further down to like quarter of a resolution, you can see it's absolutely buttery smooth. So this is full resolution. If you want to do that, now you'd be absolutely insane to do that. But pressing play, it's very hard to play back that. Can you play back? It is very choppy when playing back. So full Canon R5 8K, it's not as good. So then we have 12K here. This is insane resolution, just to put it in perspective. This is like having 4 8K clips at the same time playing back, because it's just ridiculous. Now look at this. This is full resolution, and look at the timeline performance. I know this is B-RAW, but even for B-RAW, that high resolution, it is seriously hard for any system to play back something like that. Obviously, when you play back this, it's not going to do a very good job when playing back 12K full resolution. As you can see, it's missed choppy, but when we put this to quarter of a resolution, press play, smooth as baby's bottom. This is absolutely insane. I can't stress enough. Hopefully you can like kind of get this across on the video, how insanely powerful this playback is. It's ridiculous, absolutely insane. And that was at full resolution. Now, if you drop it down to maybe half or quarter, it's going to be even better. And this is like putting it through like the worst scenarios. If you just get any H.264 8-bit from any mirrorless camera or full HD, you know, you'll be laughing. Which leads me to the next point, which is the user experience. Like how good this is. Now, I've tried now photo editing, video editing on this, especially on Premiere Pro, and I have never tried a PC, any computer actually, in fact, that has such smooth performance on creative applications. It's just beautiful to play back. It is very, it's just, I don't have words. I'm just mumbling here because it's just so good. It's so good for what you pay for this. I'm just thinking of my own system that I built like a year ago now, and I'm thinking, goodness me, I almost want this processor because it's kind of like a cheaper processor downgrade, but because how good the raw performance of this is, it's just so good. So the user experience, I don't have anything bad to say. Even the loudness of this is absolutely beautiful, because how I've tuned and configured this is that on the full load or actually on idle, there is not that much of a difference in terms of the sound. That is very, very impressive. Now you can hear that the fans are on and it's the computer, but it's nothing annoying or nothing distracting. Another good side, as you can see, is that it is very affordable compared to some of the other systems that are out there. For this amount of money you pay for this, it's insanely good. Another thing that's going for this is the upgradability. You can easily add or swap out things if you want to upgrade to something, better CPU, better GPU, more RAM. Slot it in there, no problem. You need a 10 gigabit Ethernet, pop it down there you go. You need Thunderbolt 3? No problem, it's built in. Now, how often do you see a Ryzen system with Thunderbolt 3 built in? There you go. And last of all, it looks beautiful. Look how minimalistic design this is. I know that you know, some minimalists actually would get mad in the comment system below, but for an average non-minimalist, this is a beautiful design. There is not too much going on. Everything kind of fits in. It's black and white. There is a little bit of color, no RGB, because no one needs RGB. There is just this beautiful, a little bit of white LED that just lights up that. A little bit of Gigabyte logo light up, but that is it really. That's a beautiful, beautiful system. So what would be some of the downsides of this system then? Now, this is really a splitting a hair and actually, you know, really nitpicking over there, but I know that some pro creators actually would need a 10 gigabit Ethernet for the NAS and storage, so that is not included over here, but you can easily just add that for $100. I'm going to leave links in the description if you want to pick that out or pick that card out. Easily add that there, and there you go, you can have that as well. For some people, not enough PCIe 4.0 lanes might be an issue over here if you're running multiple GPU system or workstation, or if you want to build that, then obviously that's maybe not the case over here, or you can't do that as well because this is a B550 chipset. It's not the best chipset out there, but for like 99% of the creators out there, which I would slot myself into as well, and hopefully you are in, then you know that's that. If you're in the 1%, are you wondering what's the actual best system you can get? If there's anybody who wants to know this, just comment below, let me know in the comment section below. The last downside I can think of is that it's big. The system is actually big, and it's not as small as a laptop, but it's not much bigger than Mac Pro. So if you're in that type of world or that type of area, this is how big it's gonna get, and there's nothing gonna be smaller. But this one, there's loads of upgradability of SSD slots in the back. If you want to get any more SATA SSDs or hard drives, there's 2 hard drives you can slot in the bottom over there as well. Loads more upgradability you can do. So let's wrap this up. Hopefully I've come across clear enough to show you how good this system is, how good and what it can do, how well this is actually priced, and in the pro, you know, section of creators, this is an absolutely amazing system for the price. Now, this video is part 1 of this video series, so if you want to check out the part 2 and part 3, hit that subscribe button because these are coming out very, very soon. In part 2, we're talking about every single component, why I chose this, why I did go with this one, and why did I not go with anybody else or anything else, and how you can save up to $840 on this system if you want to go with some of the more affordable options over there. But you want to check out the part 2 because there are some things that you need to consider, or if you do in certain applications certain things, then it doesn't make sense for you. But if you do in some certain other applications, it completely makes sense for you to go with the cheaper option, because this more expensive version or more expensive component actually won't give you any more performance. Anyway, that's part 2. Check that out. It's coming out soon, or maybe by the time you're watching this, it's already out there. Check it out. On part 3, we're actually building the system from boxes to actually editing and working on it. So if you want to check that out, go check that out as well. If you like this video, please hit that like button. It actually makes a difference. It just helps me to know that I've done a good job or a bad job. Just be honest. If you like the video, hit that like button. Feel free to hit that dislike button. I won't get too mad, but I will get sad. If you're wondering what would be the best system or CPU for certain applications, then there's other videos on my channel. Feel free to check them out. But I'm gonna finish with this, a question for you. What price point would you like me to cover next for the best bang for buck PC system for creators? Let me know in the comment section below. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks guys for watching. I'll see you soon. Bye bye.